Hello and welcome to episode number 6 of the In This League Fantasy Football YouTube show. You can hear a little thunder on Nico's side there. Apologies if Nico goes dark. You're having an electrical storm over there, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Just hit my neighbor's shed, so let's hope it doesn't hit me.
One well done shed. Yeah, please don't, because I'll have to get somebody else to do all this awesome research that I don't have time to do if we have Nico fried here. So if you haven't joined us before, we're from inthisleague.com. We have all kinds of podcasts there. We have them for, we have an NFL podcast. We have baseball. We have basketball. We have college fantasy football, and hockey is coming soon. We got all the stuff. So come find us there, and then inthisleague.com. We got all kinds of info for you. If you haven't seen this show before, what we do is the first half is normal offensive side of the ball. The second half is all IDP info. So maybe you play IDP and you want to come here and get some information from us. Maybe you've never played IDP and you don't care, so just listen to the first half. When we go to the IDPs, shut us off. That's fine too. But we have good information on both sides of the ball for you. You can find us both on Twitter. I'm at Bogman Sports. Nico, what's yours?
I'm at Nico ITL, Nico with a C, not a K.
There you go. Easy peasy. If you have any questions for us, come on right on the show. It's scottbogman@gmail.com or Nico Miatello, Miatello @gmail.com. JELLO. So, yeah, we are all set and ready to go. Let's get to the news here, Nico. Kubiak is excited about Cody Latimer. What do you think of that?
I'm starting to like Cody Latimer. We've heard about Emmanuel Sanders' role decreasing in the offense. Maybe that's because Kubiak likes Latimer a whole lot. And when Kubiak likes a receiver, that guy's getting 1 million targets. So
yeah, it seems like Latimer might be I don't want to say he's pushing Emmanuel Sanders out of a job, but at least pushing him in competition for the season. Mm-hmm. So maybe you see, it's more like 70% of the snaps go to Emmanuel and Latimer gets in there for 30. Or they run him at tight end, like you said last week.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Hunter is facing felony assault charges.
Ugh.
So one less target for the rookie Mariota.
Yeah, I was so high on Justin Hunter coming to that draft. I was high on him last year. Now I can't be high on him anymore, unfortunately.
Not when he's probably going to be behind bars.
Yeah, he's probably gone, unfortunately.
Yeah. How about Reggie Wayne? Reggie Wayne plans on playing this season. What do you think are some good fits for him?
I think he would actually be a nice fit in a relatively young receiving corps, somewhere like Philadelphia or something like that, because he can mentor some of those young guys. Because realistically, in Philadelphia, no one over the age of like 22. So.
Oh, okay. You kind of cut out there, but I think we got it. No, there's no one over Philly really.
Yeah.
I think Miami would fit too, and that's where he's from. That could be nice. Maybe Cleveland. Cleveland could definitely use a number one target. Or maybe even Oakland across from Amari Cooper would be nice.
That would be a really good one.
It is where old players go to die, is Oakland.
Yeah.
So you see Maurice Jones-Drew and, all those guys. So Bishop Sankey is the favorite to start week 1. What do you think of that?
Well, he'll get about 4 carries, and Ken Wisenhunt will pull his hair out, and Sankey will sit on the bench for the rest of the game. So,
and then it'll be David Cobb time, right?
Yeah, I think so. I could see Bishop Sankey starting and getting a reasonable amount of carries, but I will bet anyone in the world he averages less than 4 yards per carry this year.
Yeah, it's going to be ugly at the running back position for Tennessee. I mean, I would take David Cobb just because we don't know what we've seen from him yet. And maybe he can provide us something good. I mean, there's all kinds of late running backs that, bring us back value or step into a starting role and can put numbers up. And Tennessee's got a good line. So, it's always a possibility. So we'll see.
Yeah.
The last one for the news segment we have here is Cam Hayward, our boy, got paid. He did
get that money. Yeah, the guys at SteelersDepot.com called this contract like to the dollar pretty much, so that was pretty crazy. He deserves this money, and with them installing a one gap system this year, I could see Cam Hayward making a huge impact and putting his name in that category with guys like Sheldon Richardson and Fletcher Cox, the guys one tier below JJ Watt.
Yeah, Cam Hayward didn't come in to the league and light the world on fire, but the last couple years he has been really, really good. And he's looking like more and more of a leader as some of the older guys on the defense fade out, like the Ike Taylors and, Casey Hampton and Brett Kiesels and Troy Polamalu's now gone. So it looks like this is becoming more and more of a Cam Hayward-led team. So now he's got the money. He's going to get a C probably. And we'll see where he takes it. I like this signing a lot.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know. Maybe Timmons is the only other guy who might get that C. It's between the two of them for sure.
I think Timmons might be the only guy older than him. Well, James Harrison, obviously.
Yeah.
But James Harrison, but I mean, the rest of that defense is pretty damn young. Yeah. So impressive guy for sure, and he got paid, and we don't have to worry about that contract until.
Now we just need
6 more years.
Yeah, now we just need Kelvin Beachum to sign. That's the one I'm worried about.
Yeah, we'll get it done. It's not going to be a problem. So, all right, well, let's move into these facts. If you didn't see last week, you can go back. We had the AFC version of these facts, but these are just facts that happened. Most of them are last year, and it's really good to hear these things, and this can sometimes change your perspective on value in some of these players. So we're going to start out in the NFC East, and we're going to start with the Dallas Cowboys. I really like this one. Dez Bryant ended last season on a run for the ages. In his last 7 games, Dez never had less than 4 catches and 73 yards. He also had 10 touchdowns over that span. That is finishing out the year solid. Yeah,
he went crazy. You probably won your championship if you had Dez Bryant on your team. And you made it that far. He made a huge impact at that point, and man, I want him on my teams this year, especially now that he's all signed up.
Yeah, he's signed, and DeMarco Murray left for greener pastures over to Philly. So I mean, we could see even more targets to Dez this year.
Yeah,
that could definitely happen.
Insane.
And all right, so moving on to the Giants here. This one is so good too. After the bye, wide receiver Odell Beckham led the NFL in targets, catches, and yards, while finishing 3rd in touchdown behind Dez and Mike Evans. He's also targeted 21 times against the Eagles. I mean, the offense goes through him now. Yeah.
He at the end of the year, Ruben Randall also ended up pretty strong. So I wanted to put a fact about him in there, but I couldn't really work it in when Odell Beckham's getting all of the targets. 21 targets. There's multiple receivers in the NFL who don't get targeted that much in a season, and he got it in 1 game. So I love this guy. He's starting to work his way up my rankings. If the top 3 receivers weren't so solid, I would definitely have him there.
He reminds me of, if Brandon Marshall started out his career with someone not Kyle Orton, like one of the Manning brothers or somebody.
Yeah.
So I feel like we just see a bright future from this guy if he can stay healthy. I'm really excited to see what he can do this year. This one, if you listen to the podcast with the Welsh and I said Mark Sanchez is going to be relevant in the NFL this year because Sam Bradford can't stay healthy. And this fact is so great. Mark Sanchez produced great numbers over his 9-game stretch. He was on pace. You take those 9 games, put him over 16 for 4,300 yards and 25 touchdowns, as well as 160 rushing yards. I don't know so much about the quarterback competition going into camp. I think they're going to hand the job to Sam Bradford. For some reason, Sam Bradford just keeps getting the benefit of the doubt. I don't know what it is. I don't like the guy. I've never liked the guy. And, outside of him being from Oklahoma, for me not liking him, the dude can't stay healthy. Number 1 overall pick, you have to say he's disappointed for sure, especially, Rams fans would not disagree with me. So,
yeah. He's the same reason guys like Jay Cutler always get chances, is because he can throw a beautiful ball. But that's pretty much it with Sam Bradford. Mark Sanchez did exactly what Chip Kelly told him to do, and Sam Bradford sort of has the stigma of not the kind of guy who does exactly what people tell him to do. So I could see, because Chip Kelly loves those guys so much who listen to him, I could see Mark Sanchez maybe taking this job away from him in camp. I'm not ready to draft Sam Bradford.
No, yet. I'm not really ready to mess with that situation. I think if I'm doing anything out of that, I'm taking Mark Sanchez as my third quarterback, because I know how good quarterbacks in Chip Kelly's system have produced. Yeah. So I think that's what I would do if I'm going to do anything with the Eagles quarterback situation. Washington running back Matt Jones has been touted as the receiving back that Jay Gruden likes, but he had 19 total catches in his entire college career. Alfred Morris has had 30 catches in 3 years. Are either one of these guys going to catch the ball out of the backfield?
I don't think either of them will catch it at all. Matt Jones, the general manager, his name's escaping me right now in Washington, the new guy, has been touted as a guy who goes and gets what he wants. And apparently what he wanted was a receiving back, and he didn't do a very good job of that. Matt Jones is not that kind of guy. I don't dislike Matt Jones as a running back, but I think he's fighting for the same snaps that Alf is going to get, and I don't think he's better than Alfred Morris.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. I think, obviously in a keeper league, I'm going to lean towards Matt Jones just because I think that Alfred Morris is in a contract year. He'll probably walk and go somewhere else. But I think really what this stat says is that Silas Redd could hold some more value this year and get in there on some third downs or third and longs or passing downs. So
yeah, he's one of the guys I'm going after in like MFL 10s if you do the zero running back strategy, but I'm not drafting him in any redraft like year-long leagues.
Right. All right. So moving on to the NFC North, the Chicago Bears, despite Matt Forte's amazing season as a pass catcher last season, he took a dip in running production, averaging 3.9 yards per carries, a low since 2009, and totaled 1,038 yards and 6 touchdowns. Also, last season, Matt Forte had 130 total targets, and new coordinator Adam Gase, leading running backs for the last 2 seasons, have combined for 118 targets over the last 2 seasons. So this says to me we expect a dip in targets and catches for Matt Forte for the new offensive system. And if he doesn't get that yards per carry up, that John Fox is definitely going to screw with him, exactly like you predicted last week.
Yeah, man, Matt Forte. I loved Matt Forte last year. I think I had him as my third back. I had him. I might have even had him ahead of LaShawn McCoy at number 2. But this year, I'm afraid of him. I think he's a good player. He's just getting up there in age, and it doesn't look like it's going to go very well for him.
Yeah, it could be a rough season, and he's one of those guys where I feel like you're going to take him and you're going to get him later than he should go, and he's going to produce. Kind of like Marshawn Lynch last year. A lot of people pushed off Marshawn Lynch, said, the injury is going to come. He had to go through the whole playoffs the year before, that kind of thing, and it just didn't happen. I think we might see the same thing from Matt Forte, but he's definitely much riskier than he ever has been in the past, for sure.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Lions, running back Amir Abdullah has been often criticized for his ball security. During his final season in college, he fumbled 4 times and lost 2 of them. For contrast to this, and I love this, first-round pick Melvin Gordon fumbled the ball 7 times and lost it 6 times. And his teammate and competitor for the job, Joique Bell, fumbled 5 times last year, only lost 1, but put it on the ground 5 times. So those issues seem to be completely overblown.
Yeah, I think they're overblown completely. If you remember Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, the law firm who was touted for his ball security being maybe the best ball security back ever, he fumbled the ball 3 times and lost it twice in his final college year. So I think this ball security issues, it was definitely prevalent when Abdullah was a freshman, but he's cleaned it up a lot, and he's going to take this job. I don't get how people are still on the Joyke Bell train. I might take Joyke Bell in the last pick of my draft.
I tell you what, in all the mocks that I did, because we had the strategy show, Chris and I did, every single draft, almost every single draft, I took Amir Abdullah first off, and Joyke Bell went after Abdullah in every draft. So I think it is coming down a lot.
That's good. That is really good. But there are still some of those people on the Joyke Bell bandwagon, unfortunately, and we have to work one by one to take them all off of it.
Moving on to Green Bay, despite a career high in touchdowns with 12, Cobb faced a significant scoreless drought from week 11 to 16. No scores. That's rough, especially if you're trying to make a run. This killed many hopes for championship contenders. Cobb has faced multiple of these droughts throughout his career. So what do you think that really means? You got to count on the yards for Cobb. You can't count on him to get in the end zone.
Yeah, he's a really good PPR receiver. I like him a lot in those situations, but if you see 2 games in a row that Cobb doesn't get a touchdown, I'd trade him away, because I think it's happened 3 or 4 times in his career where he's went like 6 or 7 games in a row without a score. Whenever he scores, he's scoring every game. So if he goes 2 games without a score, I'm getting rid of him. I still like him. He's still probably a wide receiver 1 for me, but this is a scary stat.
I feel like for some reason I feel like it's a little overblown, because Jordy Nelson, I think, caught 13 last year, and I feel like we're going to see, now that he's known as a red zone guy, we're going to see more of a, of a coverage situation on him in the red zone. Maybe it opens up Randall Cobb a little bit this year, but I mean, you can't go against facts, and that is a fact. He's had these streaks before. It's happened. So it's a running thing that's happened, and it's something you have to pay attention to. For the Vikings, this one, just another great one. You really hit all these out of the ballpark here, Nico. Wide receiver Charles Johnson played 100% of the snaps weeks 12 through 16. He is the #1 receiver in Minnesota. For contrast, Des Bryant played 100% of the snaps, only 1 game last year. So, I mean, would you call it youthful exuberance from Charles Johnson? I mean, being a young guy, or do you think it's just the way he's built? He's conditioned greatly.
I think he's conditioned greatly, and he can run block, and that's something that's not very common amongst wide receivers, and something Norv Turner has shown an affinity for in guys like Vincent Jackson, who can also run block. So he's going to be on the field all the time. Mike Wallace can definitely not run block. So
that is the understatement of the century.
Yeah, he'll turtle at best. So we're gonna see a lot of Charles Johnson, and I think we could see Charles Johnson probably have somewhere in the range of 120 targets this year, just because he's always going to be in the field. I think he could come close to leading all wide receivers in snaps.
I'm excited to see what that offense puts together with Teddy Bridgewater in his second season, AP coming back. Adding Mike Wallace, I mean, it could mean this could mean big things for Kyle Rudolph. I mean, maybe he sees a lot of wide open targets and red zone things like that. But I don't know, man. I'm really excited for the Vikings this year and to see where they go.
I'm very excited for them too. The contract they have a young, good quarterback on. We've seen stuff like that happen, and it leads to teams like Seattle developing. And I think this could happen in Minnesota. They've got a ton of pieces on both sides of the ball, and look out for them in the next. I could see them being the best team in that division within the next 3 years.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that surprising to me at all. It's going to be tough to take down Green Bay, but Aaron Rodgers could, get injured. He's been I wouldn't say injury prone, but he's had injuries in his career. So it wouldn't be that surprising. But moving on to the NFC South and the Atlanta Falcons, despite only totaling 504 yards receiving, Devin Hester finished as the 31st wide receiver in the league, in leagues that include return yards, making him a pretty consistent wide receiver 3 and a good flex option. I mean, that's another great stat. I think most leagues, if you don't count return yards, you probably should, because it is part of the game. I mean, I know some people roll their eyes at that, but probably not if you're listening to this. If you're listening to this, most likely you're in an IDP league, and it's the more complicated, the better for you. But that's another great one.
Yeah, Devin Hester is also one guy you could probably get in the last round of your draft, and he's just a safe guy who, if one of your wide receivers gets hurt in the first few games, if you take a guy like Julio Jones or Odell Beckham, who's shown injuries in the last few seasons, I would want to take in one of the last rounds Devin Hester, because he's just going to consistently produce points for you.
It's almost a wide receiver handcuff.
Yeah, it's pretty close to that.
A little bit. This is my favorite one. It's absolutely my favorite one because I'm excited to see what this guy does. But Carolina Panthers, Jonathan Stewart has 10 career games with 19 or more carries. The Panthers are 9-1 in those games. Give this guy the rock. Let him run it. I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, that's the only game I think they lost was against Seattle a couple years ago, and I'm pretty sure he still ran for almost 200 yards in that game, but they couldn't get the W. So Jonathan Stewart, I think just based on physical talent, he's one of the top 4 or 5 guys probably in the whole league. And I love him this year. He's moving way up on my draft boards, and he looks like a end of the second round, top of the first round option or third round option for me.
Yeah, I think the one thing that needs to be said about Jonathan Stewart is because of his injury history. If you do take him,
Cameron Artis-Payne,
you have to take Cap. You got to do it. You got to take Cameron Artis-Payne, and it's just a big thing that you're going to have to look for and do for sure. So, but I love that stat. I mean, they got to look at that stat and go, we got to give this guy the ball. Somebody is telling them that. So, all right, New Orleans, and on the podcast that the Welsh and I recorded today, we did mention that New Orleans said they're going to do a tight end committee type of deal, but I think once everything is said and done, they're going to put the best guy out on the field. And this stat leads towards our guy Josh Hill. Only 10 tight ends in the NFL had more touchdowns than Josh Hill last season, while Hill only played 25% of his team's snaps.
Yeah, he is a red zone target, to say the least. And Breeze, being a shorter quarterback, has always shown an affinity for those guys. I think Josh Hill he might get those lower numbers that some people are worried about, where it's going to be like 40 catches and 600, 550 yards. But I could see him having those numbers and then 12 touchdowns, which is a tight end you want to own regardless of what else he's getting you.
Yeah, we were talking about Jermaine Gresham today on the show, and Jermaine Gresham is yet unsigned. But we're talking about how he was expected to do way more. And when he coming out of Oklahoma, and he just never really produced. But he is a decent red zone target. So I'm a little afraid of the Saints signing Jermaine Gresham. But right now he's not signed. Josh Hill scored 5 touchdowns last year. If you're doing your math correctly, if he's in on 100% instead of 25%, that's 20 touchdowns. Now that's ridiculous and never going to happen. I don't think a tight end is going to catch 20 touchdowns or anything. But I mean, is it so much to say he could have at least double that with 10 touchdowns?
I could see that easily. And he's probably one of the guys who's going to start off the year a little slow if they're doing that tight end by committee thing with Ben Watson and Gresham if he gets signed. But I could see him running away with this job. I think Breeze probably likes him, and Sean Payton has shown that he likes him. And if he has those two things, it can turn guys like Marcus Colston, who has no outstanding physical abilities, into wide receiver 1. So
yeah, it's
like that.
It's going to be interesting to see with the targets that they lost in New Orleans, how they regain that offensive prowess for sure. Tampa Bay, Vincent Jackson dealt with the worst quarterback play in his career last season, and he still managed 70 catches with 1,000 yards. I mean, his scores went down to 2, but he's playing with Jameis. I mentioned this today too. One of the best names I saw was Jameis Lannister, Consent Slayer. For all of you Game of Thrones fans, you know, Jaime Lannister, Kingslayer, but Jameis Lannister, Consent Slayer was a team name, and I definitely slapped my knee at that one.
Yeah, there was I seen Jameis and the Giant Peach. That's a pretty good one.
That's a good one too. Yeah. I like it. But yeah, so needless to say, Vincent Jackson should, especially for where he's going in this somewhere around the 6th or 7th round now, he should give you a great return in value this year.
Yeah, before we had that disaster of last season, he averaged 8 touchdowns per year in the previous 3 seasons. So I can see that even if just that happens, he still has 70 catches, 1,000 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Then he is a mid-range wide receiver too. And I want that guy on my team in the 6th round. So, and I've talked about this before. I'm not sure if I mentioned it on the podcast. Young receivers like to go to, or young quarterbacks like to go to veteran receivers. And Vincent Jackson is that guy for Jameis Winston. So I could see definitely, I think he's going to start the year out with a bang. So maybe he's one of those guys you want to draft and look to trade. Also, Tampa Bay has maybe the easiest schedule ever. So it's pretty crazy. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but you look at it and it's almost like, I think they play one defense that finished in the top 10 last year, all year.
Okay. So, yeah, you know, it's another one of those things where touchdowns, especially for wideouts, are a bit of an anomaly from year to year. It's almost like wins for starting pitchers if you've ever played fantasy baseball. They can be frustrating because so much more depends on it. So much more is dependent on it than just how good is the wide receiver or how good is the pitcher. You know, it's you got to be open. You got to not have double coverage on you. You got to have, you know, even if you're the number one target by a lot of the times you're going to get double, triple covered in the end zone. So other guys, you know, vulture your touchdowns a little bit. Or it could be a weird thing where the team is running down to the 1 for some reason, and then they have a good fullback or a running quarterback or something like that, and they're just not getting scores. And last year, I think it happened where a lot of the scores went to Mike Evans. And it's just one of those things, kind of like we mentioned with Randall Cobb and Jordy Nelson, where they come and go. So, but moving on to the NFC West, Arizona, in games with Carson Palmer healthy, Andre Ellington averaged 19.83 points per game over a 16-game stretch that would have made him the number 4 back in fantasy football. I actually, this is, I like the other ones are all great stats. I think this is the first one I'm genuinely surprised at.
Yeah, the same thing for me. I was looking through the stats for every player in the offense. I wanted to see who played better with Carson Palmer. And I went through all the receivers and the tight ends, and then I went to the running backs. I was like, oh, Andre Ellington, I might as well check. And I seen that I lost my mind. I couldn't believe that. He had games with it was like 88. It was like 88 rushing yards, 6 receptions, 72 passing yards, and a score. Like games like that 2 or 3 times with Carson Palmer in the lineup. I had Ellington as a guy I was avoiding before I seen this. Now he's moving up my boards. It kind of reminds me of how Bruce Arians made Rashard Mendenhall, who wasn't that physically gifted, an RB1 in fantasy. I think I'm starting to take flyers on Andre Ellington now. I
think the only problem that I have with this stat, as far as possibly being misleading, not that it is misleading at all, but is that Bruce Arians hangs those quarterbacks out to dry, and they are consistently hurt in his system. So, like, Roethlisberger was almost always banged up every single year that Bruce Arians was the offensive coordinator. We saw Carson Palmer go down last year.
Yeah,
I think he didn't come back for a while.
I was looking through that, and I think in the past, I can't remember, it's like 10 years or 12 years of Arians as an offensive coordinator. His quarterback only finished the season playing 16 games 2 times. And one of them was
Andrew Luck. Yeah. And I think that was Luck's rookie season. And I mean, Luck is he's a huge dude at quarterback anyway. He's built like a linebacker. I mean, Ben is too, but Ben had miles on him before Arians started seeing.
He also had maybe the worst offensive line I've ever seen. So.
Yeah, so that combo was not good. And, the offensive line is much improved in Arizona. That's something that they've worked on for the last couple of years because it has been really bad. And it's not just Carson Palmer. Other quarterbacks have been hurt in that system. We've seen the carousel there for a long time. But, I mean, that's the only thing that would concern me at all with actually taking Ellington. So I wouldn't go and bump him up to the second round or third round anything quite yet because we're not sure. Like, it's one of those things where you take Carson Palmer, you take Andre Ellington, and Palmer goes down in week 10, and he's out for the year, and then you're kind of screwed for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a weird predicament with fourth round guys because that's sort of where I see Ellington, but at fourth round I'm taking Travis Kelce. So
I took a lot of in my mocks. I took a lot of Kelce in the fourth and a lot of DeAndre Hopkins in the third and fourth. So Seattle, Marshawn Lynch had at least 90 yards and all of the. Hold on, let me reread this. Marshawn had at least 90 yards in all of the season's last 9 games. All last season's last 9 games. Don't count him out. He's the safest pick atop the draft board. So you find Marshawn Lynch to be the safest pick?
Yeah, I think he's safe not because he's incredibly safe, but because everyone else is a little unsafe. The only guy I think that can compete with him is Eddie Lacy for the safest guy. But I'm a little afraid of Aaron Rodgers getting hurt this year or us getting late into the season and them just throwing the ball 100 times to prove a statement that after what happened with Seattle. So I guess we're going to have to wait and see. I just see Lynch as the safest guy. That being said, he's not my number one guy. I have him probably around 4 or 5, but I think he's the safest one.
I think my safest is still Peterson, especially coming off a year off and having some fresh legs. I think he would be my safest guy. Now, if I'm picking that high, I'm not taking the safest guy. I'm taking the guy at the highest upside because that's kind of what you have to do when you're picking that high in the top 4 or 5 picks. You just have to take the player that you see has the highest upside, regardless of injury, because that's kind of the way football works. I mean, the payoff is the biggest thing. So I like Marshawn Lynch, but I'm one of those people that I'm afraid of him. That's 2 years in a row he's had the run to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's just a lot of grinding on a running back. And I know he's incredible and he's durable and he's always tough. But even the durable guys wear down in the NFL eventually. And I don't want to be the guy holding on to him when that happens. So I don't think I'm messing with them this year, but if I have pick 7 or 8 and he's still sitting there, I'd have a hard time not taking him for sure, especially because I love the running back strategy. St. Louis, last year, Nick Foles averaged 39 attempts per game. The Rams passed the ball on average 32 times per game. That means even lower numbers for Foles. Well, what is your opinion on Foles? Is he somebody you would take as a quarterback too, or do you think he's 2 quarterback league fodder only?
I think for me, he's probably 2 quarterback league fodder only. If I'm taking a quarterback 2, it's probably only maybe someone in the top 15, and Foles probably closer to 18 to 20 range for me. I'm scared off by him. I'm afraid he's really a product of Chip Kelly's system. And we've seen that Mark Sanchez was awesome last year, and we know what he was like before that. So he was butt fumble until Chip Kelly. So I'm afraid of Nick Foles becoming butt fumble.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the Sanchez is only succeeding because of the system that he's in, for sure. Mm-hmm. So I agree with that. But now we're going to move on to
we skipped San Francisco.
We did. I'm sorry, the Welsh. I skipped San Francisco. look at me. And this is a good stat, too. Aside from 2004, when he missed 6 games, Anquan Boldin has never been targeted less than 100 times in a season. That's incredible. for the amount of games that guy has played, and on some of those Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick teams where those quarterbacks aren't they're not Kurt Warner, that's for sure. So I think just for the pure longevity of that guy's career, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, he even in the season where he was targeted 100 times, he played 12 games. Every other year, he's being targeted like 120, 130 times. This guy gets fed the rock like no one else. He was a Raven for a while, so I wasn't a huge fan at that time. But he's a great player, and I think he's going really late in drafts this year. If you're taking those high-risk receivers, Anquan Boldin is a guy I definitely take in the later rounds.
Yeah, I definitely took him in one of my auctions. I got him for $1.
Oh, wow.
And $1, you're getting 100 targets. That's an amazing deal. So, God, those auctions were weird. Have you done any mock auctions yet?
I've yet to do them because they don't fill up enough. You really have to hit them at the right time.
Well, you got to do them not at 1 o'clock in the morning, Nico. I'm kind of with you there, though. But yeah, I did a couple. I did a couple yesterday, and just the prices are they swing so wildly. I saw Todd Gurley I got for $2 in a league.
Oh, wow.
And in another league, he went for $42.
Yeah.
So it's been a little weird this year as far as auctions go, but I'm sure, once people start to mock those more, they'll fill out a little more. But we're going to move to IDP now that I'm not skipping any teams or anything. But we want to take a second here to tell you about our listener league. We have an IDP listener league. How many IDPs are we going to be doing in that one?
We're starting 7, I believe. 2 DBs, 2 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and a flex.
Okay, so 7 starting defensive players. If it's something that you've never done, I really suggest you give it a go. If you haven't seen, I have an article up on inthisleague.com called "The Church of IDP," where I explain why I like playing with IDPs, and it also includes our ranks or my ranks. I think Nico, did you do an article yet?
I'm yet to do it. I went camping and didn't do it instead, so that'll go up probably tomorrow.
Okay, so Nico will get on there, and you'll see his ranks will be up there soon too. That's me kind of directing traffic here on a live show. But yeah, and if you have any IDP questions, we'd be happy to answer them. Anything you got for us, scottbogman@gmail.com, nicomiatello@gmail.com, or on Twitter, Bogman Sports and Nico ITL. Just hit us up and we'll get to them for you. So, but moving on here to the NFC East on the IDP side, starting again with the Dallas Cowboys. Since coming off an injury in 2012, Barry Church has been the #1 scoring DB in fantasy. Additions to the pass rush should just improve this for him. Now, that's because he's getting torched a lot, right?
Yeah, of course. That's for every safety. It's pretty much that. He's one of those guys who's just good enough to be a starting safety in the NFL, but just not good enough to get targeted all the time. So he's the guy you love for fantasy. He's like the 60th best starting safety in the NFL. You need those guys.
You know what they should do, and I don't know how hard this is to keep track of, but what they should do is you should get a negative point every time you get targeted. I think that's what it is. I think that would make, I don't know, would that even it out, or would that just make pretty much every defensive back worthless?
I think it would make a lot of defensive backs worthless because you had guys like, I think Buster Screen and what's his name, Jason McCourty were targeted like 122 times last year. And scored like 160 points. So,
okay, but yeah, that's definitely an interesting stat. And Barry Church, I think I had pretty high on my list.
Yeah, I think you had him like 4 or 5 for DBs.
The moving on to the New York Giants, Prince Amukamara played only 8 games last season. If you project his numbers out to 16, it's 90 tackles, 6 picks, and 22 passes defended, which would be second all time. Pretty solid year from Amukamara.
Yeah, when he came back. I'll give you a trivia question. Do you know who was #1 all time in the passes defended?
Was it Rod Woodson?
No, it wasn't. It was a Steeler though.
Ike Taylor?
No, it was Keenan Lewis in his last year.
Keenan Lewis.
Yeah, he had 23 of them in his last year as a Steeler. That a lot of that has to do with the bad hands, but
yeah, he tipped a lot of balls. Yeah, he's getting to him though, so that was good. Yeah. When you said trivia question, I knew it was the Steelers, so I was like, oh god. I'm a little surprised that Rod Woodson wasn't in there, but he's one of those shutdown corners for a long time. He was.
Yeah. They just don't throw to him, so he can't get a lot of breakups. Prince Amukamara is a great corner. I think he's probably, if you have just straight up corners, he's probably the second guy to go off your board after McCourty. So I'm pretty high on him. There is a bit of an injury risk, and also the pass rush could be a little bit worse, which means they're going to throw the ball a little bit more against the Giants. So
speaking of which, did you see somebody on Facebook put up? It was a picture of Jason Pierre-Paul, and he's doing this, and it said, "Jason Pierre-Paul be like Throwback Thursday." And also during the SP Award, Joel McHale said, "Oh, Jason Pierre-Paul's here," and they cut to a shot, and it was just an index finger with a Super Bowl ring on it, sitting in a chair. Brutal. I mean, I don't wish any ill will on the guy. It was obviously a dumb decision, and he's paid the price for it. But hopefully he gets to a speedy recovery, and he can be the player he once was. It's just, it's something you kind of have to make fun of.
Yeah, he hasn't been a great player for a couple years. He was okay last year. He wasn't great. And do you remember a few years ago where they had that whole bullying scandal with New York? Actually, Jason Pierre-Paul and Prince Amukamara, when he threw him in the tub and stuff. So maybe he's not that much of a guy.
No.
Yeah.
No, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, Prince Amukamara was freaking out afterwards too, so it didn't seem like it was a fun thing. So maybe he's not the best guy.
Well, I guess Prince Amukamara, after he gets a pass defended, he can still do the Dikembe Mutombo, and Pierre-Paul can't.
Yeah.
So, moving on to Philly before this drags us down the rabbit hole. Linebacker Kiko Alonso has one game in his career with less than 8.5 points scored, and is stepping into a defense that he played all through college. He was at Oregon, so that's a solid call there for sure.
Yeah, Kiko Alonso. At first, I think I'm going the way you did, because at first I was closer on Kendricks and Alonso, even though Alonso went to Oregon, who I'm a fan of, which is the team I'm a fan of. But I think I have to move Alonso up and Kendricks down a little bit. The guy is ridiculous. He's so good. And he's got great hands for a linebacker, which is always excellent for IDP. And
when Philly is burning some teams and they have to pass the ball, it could mean, a pick here or there. So, or maybe a tip pass, and, the guy's got hands. So this one is interesting, but I'm still concerned a little bit. Cornerback for the Redskins, Rashad Breeland averaged 5.5 tackles and 1 pass defended in his last six games, making him easily a CB1 and a high-end DB2. What is your fear that he is so bad he's going to lose that job?
Is there anyone better? That's the big
There's got to be. That's my thing. There's got to be. He's so bad.
Yeah,
I had him at the end of last year, and I keep seeing him racking up 10, 11 tackles, pass defended. I'm like, man, this guy is just getting burned all the time. That's why he's getting so many tackles. I feel like he's got to move to the bench at some point because he's been so bad.
I think they seem to think he's improved. So he's right now listed as their number 2 corner.
Even bad news for everybody if he is improved.
Yeah. Last year I think he did all that damage as a number 3 corner too. So if he's the number 2 corner, and if it turns out that he is improved and offenses don't know he's improved yet, that translates into a lot of interceptions.
Yeah, maybe some picks. Yeah.
That happened for Tim Jennings a couple years ago. Do you remember he had it was 7 picks through 6 games or something?
Yeah, that's a good call too. the guy's going to lose a job. I think he has to. He's terrible. He's the Cortez Allen of the Redskins, and I can't see it happening. So I think he's going to lose his job, which it doesn't mean I won't take him. I'll take him and see, because, I mean, there's so many corners. If he doesn't pan out, you can always drop him and pick somebody up.
Yeah, there's always going to be a bad corner somewhere.
There's all in the NFL, because it's what they do. Anyone who's over 6 feet tall becomes a wide receiver. So that's why you have so much more passing in the NFL, is because they don't develop corners the way they used to. And I know that's an old man thing to say, but it's true. There's very few corners that are over 6 feet tall. And the ones who are over 6 feet tall generally cannot catch the ball. So,
and that's why Richard Sherman is such an anomaly.
Right, and that's why he's a Pro Bowler and such a lockdown guy, is because he's the one guy that's over 6 feet tall and can catch and is playing corner. But we'll move on. I won't get on my high horse about the corners being short or anything. In the NFC North, going to Chicago, John Bostic, Mr. John Bostic, was extremely productive for the Bears in limited snaps last season. Vic Fangio is stepping in as his defensive coordinator and has a great history with producing inside linebackers. So if you project Bostic's per snap production over the snaps that Michael Wilhoit in the in the system last year that Bostic will be playing this year, Bostic would walk away with 127 solos and 54 assists. Now, that's a little wordy, but break that down for us.
Basically, if John Bostic is good, or even kind of good, because Fangio has been able to get a lot of production out of decent linebackers, he could be a threat for an LB1 in leagues. And right now he's going undrafted in a lot of places. So he's a guy I want on my team, and I'm gonna be able to grab him in the later rounds and maybe have the biggest breakout IDP wise of the whole year.
That's a good call. I mean, we're giving you sleeper linebackers for your IDP league. Who else is doing this? I mean, that is a great stat. And I mean, if it proves like that, Nico, you're going to look like a genius. I mean, there's no other way to say it. That's a fantastic stat. Moving on to the Lions, the last 2 seasons, inside linebackers behind Haloti Ngata have produced linebacker 1 numbers, Gerald Smith and C.J. Mosley. DeAndre Levy was the number 2 linebacker total last year, and could easily be the number 1 guy, because now he's playing in front of Haloti Ngata. Now, I know that Ngata is really good, but do you think that maybe Levy stands exactly where he was before because he had Sue, who was also a really good defensive tackle in front of him? Or do you really expect improvement for DeAndre Levy?
I actually do expect improvement, and that's because Sue is the kind of defensive tackle who's a great real-life player, but sort of takes away from his linebackers because he's getting to those runners faster and he's getting to the quarterback. Not as the kind of guy who just can take up 2 offensive linemen.
Swallows offensive linemen,
and allow players like Levy to free roam a little bit more. So I really like Levy this year. I'm not sure I put him ahead of Kuechly, but I think they go probably back to back in the 4th or 5th round, maybe in about that range.
Okay, yeah, no, that's definitely a good call, and I like DeAndre Levy too. I just don't know if I'd expect too much more out of him. But if there's anybody who could improve, it's him for sure. Moving to Green Bay, I like this one. Over the last 2 seasons, the top scoring Green Bay defensive ends have finished 56th and 75th. This is a function of this defense. No one here is even worth a flyer.
No. There's some talk about Mike Daniels. I've seen him get drafted a little bit. Don't do that. Mike Daniels was the guy who did finish 56th and 75th both these last 2 years. He could very well break out and get 10 sacks next year, but he might get 10 sacks and 12 tackles. So don't draft him anywhere. He might be a good real life player, but he is not a good player on this.
Yeah,
team.
maybe if you're in your 32-man real life fantasy football league, he's a decent pick. But other than that, no, thank you. Moving to the Vikings, Sheriff Floyd was not held scoreless in a single game last season, which is extremely rare among defensive tackles. And if you've ever played with defensive tackles, you know that. I just go out there assuming I'm getting a donut from my defensive tackle almost every single game.
Yeah, I think I had a year in an IDP league where I had 0 points from my defensive tackles 6 weeks straight.
Oh,
and I was
so
dropping guys, picking people up, doing anything I could to get someone in there at defensive.
I definitely picked Aaron Donald up off the wire when he got no points. That was me last year. Like, I got Aaron Donald. Somebody dropped him because he's on a bye week. Look at these idiots. And I pick him up, donut.
Yeah, it's
frustrating.
It's the worst. But Sheriff Floyd is one of those guys who will not get you donuts, which is so rare. If I play in a defensive tackle, including league, I'm not sure if I will, but if I do this year, I'm probably going to take Sheriff Floyd a lot higher than everyone else.
Plus, I mean, how many awesome names does the name Sheriff open your team to? You know, if you get Sheriff, now there's a new sheriff in town, something sheriff. There's all kinds of options.
Yeah.
So moving to the NFC South, Atlanta, Falcons defensive end Croy Bierman led all defensive tackles in tackles, or all defensive ends in tackles and assisted tackles, yet only managed 4.5 sacks. So he's a good option if you're risk averse, if you want guys that get tackles and don't necessarily get to the quarterback that often.
Yeah, he's a really strong bye week guy. He'll probably be streamed on 10 different rosters in your league next year. I'm definitely not a risk averse person when it comes to defensive ends. I'm just gonna go get the guy who I think could go out and get 3 sacks this week. So I'm not taking Croy Bierman, but if you are that kind of player, he's a very good player to have on your team.
For sure. Moving to Carolina, since week 5 of his rookie season, Luke Kuechly has had 1 game in his career with less than 6 combined tackles. His bad performances are above average games. I mean, that's just what you're going to get from Kuechly. You're going to get fantastic production almost every single week from him. And that's why you take him so high. That's why I would probably take him 2 overall after Watt.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely there. I think maybe if there's another defensive end for you, I would take them ahead, but I'm also going really crazy on defensive ends. But Kuechly is insane. He's probably a 5th round pick for me, and I want him in all my leagues. I love the guy, and he has that low floor, but he's liable to go off for 22 tackles and an interception. That's happened more than once. Not exactly 22, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. Let me ask you this. Just I'll put you on the spot.
Oh.
Robert Quinn or Luke Kuechly?
I think I'll take Kuechly over Quinn. If I'm gonna take anyone over Kuechly, for me it's Cam Wake. But
that's right.
I'm Cam Wake.
Got a raging clue for Cameron Wake.
Yeah, but they're very close on my
list.
Just
because he played in the CFL, everybody. Don't listen to him. Don't listen to him. So it's because he's a Canadian guy. Cameron Wake played in the CFL. Moving on to the Saints here. Before his last injury-plagued year, Jerry's Bird averaged 76 tackles, 5 picks, and 7 passes defended a year, and he's going undrafted. I mean, he's not a number 1 defensive back or anything like that. But, I mean, he's a guy who can provide you pretty good value. And once again, the Saints get on teams early and score early, and they have big leads, and then other teams have to pass against them. So and just provides more and more options for safeties. That's why I like Clinton Dix this year. Anybody on those high-scoring teams, any safety for the Eagles is going to go a little bit higher.
Even the Steelers.
Yeah, even Pittsburgh. So, those high-scoring teams usually provide you good safety points, and this is a guy that's definitely being underrated this year.
Yeah, he did a lot of that scoring not in New Orleans but in Buffalo, which was not a high-scoring team. So he could be even better. I see him, for me, he's a high-end DB2. So I'm going to love to have him on my teams, and I'm probably going to get him everywhere because not a lot of people even draft him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good call, especially if you're in a deeper league and you're needing the safety. Jerry Spur is definitely a guy to look out for. Tampa Bay, Levante David has had at least 139 combined tackles every year he's been in the league. Last year, he had a career high of 146, and he missed 2 games. That's in only 14 games. That's 10.5 tackles per game. That's an amazing, solid starter, and that's why I have him as my number 3 player.
Yeah, he is definitely. I think he is probably ahead of Levy for me, but it's very close. I'd have him as my 4 guy because Cam Waite's in there, but I like the guy. I like the guy a lot. I'm gonna take him in a lot of leagues, probably also in that 5th round range, but closer to the end. And he's just gonna produce no matter what. There, you can worry about guys like Levy because he didn't really do it until last season, but David has done it every year of his career, and he's only getting better.
Yeah, I'm the opposite of you. I like to take my risk later rather than earlier. I like to go with my more consistent things earlier. Just I know I'm going to get points out of these guys, right? So yeah. I like to, if I'm on the wheel, especially, and I'm in an IDP league, and I can take like Kuechly and David back to back. Jesus, I mean, you're just stacked. You're just stacked at linebackers. All you got to do is worry about bye weeks at that point. So it's definitely a great strategy. Let's move down into NFC West. I like this one. Arizona. Honey Badger don't give a crap about group tackles. He's had five assists in his 2-year career. So he is not piling on at all.
No,
so
never.
Do you think it's because he plays in such a weird like island state there where he's kind of a rover roaming type of guy? And maybe he's just they're keeping the ball away from him, or he's not physical. Is he the Antonio Cromartie of safeties?
I don't think it's that he's not physical, but I think it's that I've seen him multiple times running to get into a tackle and see someone else start to wrap him up, and he just stands there.
I'm good. You got him. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. And he just stands there and watches it and watches someone tackle him. And if he jumped in there, it's an assist. It's half a point. And he doesn't do that. So
how many times, let me ask you, how many times were you staring at, because you clearly had him last year.
Oh, yeah.
How many times were you staring at him going, jump in the tackle, jump in there, do something, you jerk.
Yeah. And then you hate him so much, but then 2 plays later, he just creams someone and forces a fumble or something. So he's one of those guys that, like, he's the Deshaun Jackson of defenses, pretty much.
Well, hopefully he's not dropping the ball at the 1 or anything. Yeah. So let's not completely insult the guy, right? But yeah, that's an interesting stat for sure. I don't think I'm going to have Matthew in many of my leagues, but it's one of those things that will definitely frustrate you. Moving on to the Niners, see how I'm not skipping them this time? Yeah. Antoine Bethea managed an outstanding 23.9 points in the championship week, winning many players their leagues. What did he do that week? Do you have his stat line or anything?
I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was something like, it was like 12 tackles and an interception for 40 yards, and he scored on that play, as well as got 2 more passes defended. And it was just, all his tackles were pretty much solos too. It was insane. And if Antoine Bethea almost makes my roster and is higher because of that performance, if we can get a repeat of that, especially with the Niners probably not being the best next year and teams being able to pass on them a lot, they have no one at cornerback. So I'm excited for that guy. Oh, you there? I can't hear you. Oh, it shows your mic's off.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
My mic likes to go out for no reason sometimes. It happens every once in a while. So sorry about that. But what I was saying about Antoine Bethea is he's a guy where he can have this type of performance. So it's a little bit easier to take him, even though he's not one of the most consistent guys. If you're sitting down there and you're looking, I'm probably still going to take I don't know. I'll probably take Jairus Byrd over him, but Antoine Bethea is solid, and you know that you can get those big games from him. And it's something that you know can happen. So it's always nice to see games like that, to see what the high-end level of a player is. And this is one that we've kind of beat to death here, but I like it a lot. Seattle, Kerry Williams was thrown at 99 times last season as a number one corner, and this season he'll be playing opposite of Richard Sherman. So good luck with all that. That guy could get targeted 4,000 times.
Yeah. He is going to probably fight Justin Gilbert for the most targets this year. It's going to be crazy. He's got hands, but that's about it. So we're going to probably see him have about 8 interceptions and fall on guys for tackles a little bit. But he is one of the guys I'm really worried about being so bad he'll get pulled. So draft him. He'll be good for your first few weeks, but you might have to run away from him because he could end the season as the number 6 corner.
Yeah, that's it's a bit scary, but that's a guy that could get burned a lot this year. And you know, when you play opposite of the best corner in the league, you're gonna get targeted. So it's one of those things where it's almost like the Bashaud Breeland thing, where I don't want to see him get targeted too many times because it means he could lose the job if he looks too bad. But he's definitely going to be valuable, especially earlier in the season. Last one for the St. Louis Rams. Last season, TJ McDonald allowed a league-high 6 touchdowns from the safety spot. Defenses will likely target him even more this season, and he finished 2014 as the number 2 overall DB. What do you think? He's going to finish top 5 again?
Yeah, I think you'll probably see him finish top 5. I believe I have him as my number 3 safety behind Jones from Miami and Harrison Smith, of course. But yeah. I like him a lot. He's gonna get interceptions maybe, but he's gonna just tackle everything. And 6 touchdowns from a safety spot's ridiculous. That means he has to be like exclusively covering someone, then get targeted, then allow a touchdown. That rarely happens.
That's a lot of blown coverages from a corner because you don't want to leave that guy out on an island. Yeah. So it's pretty brutal for him. And I mean, I think he's a decent safety. Obviously, he's a better tackler than he is a coverage guy. I have him as my number 4 safety. I have him behind Harrison Smith, Morgan Burnett, and Jonathan Cyprien. Yeah,
I probably have Burnett ahead of him too. I sort of forgot about Burnett.
Yeah, so I have him at number 4, and I don't think I would. I don't think I would change that too much. I think that's where I'd go with him for sure. So,
yeah.
That's everything. That's all the facts. Like I said, if you missed the AFC show, you can click one back on episode 5 and check out the AFC facts. Next week, we're not 100% we're going to fill it up, but we're going to try. We're going to try to give you an IDP mock draft. And if you'd like to be a part of that, it's probably going to be Monday night late. Monday night late, probably like 9 Pacific, 9-10 Pacific. So we'll see if we can't get that filled up with at least 10 people and get a mock for IDPs in. So we got 2 down already, me and Nico. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that, and we'll see where we go. And if not, we'll have something else for you for sure. We'll be back next Monday. Remember to check out inthisleague.com and follow us on Twitter at Bogman Sports, at Nico ITL, and we will see you guys next week.
Phone didn't even ring this episode.
Look at that. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just my microphone going off, but we'll leave you guys with that. We'll see you later.
Yeah.